Sound check 1, 2, 3, 4.
Good evening. My name is Cameron Sanchez. I'm a reporter with KJZZ in Phoenix, and I will be the moderator for this evening's discussion. The Citizens Clean Elections Commission is the sponsor of this event, and as the state's voter education agency, Clean Elections is the official sponsor of Arizona debates. So voters have the opportunity to hear directly from the candidates, ask questions on the issues that matter most to them, and vote informed. All registered voters can vote in the general election, which will be held on November 5th. The voter registration deadline is October 7th, and early voting begins October 9th. Voters that are watching this debate live, you can submit a question at any time by email at debates@kc-a.com, texting 408-840-8350, or calling 480-937-1253. We may not get to all of the audience questions, but we will do our best. Tonight, we're going to be hearing from one of the candidates in Legislative District 25, which covers part of Southwest Arizona, including Buckeye. We're going to kick off by hearing from Mr. O'Lear. You will have 1 minute for your opening and closing statements and 2 minutes for responses to voter questions. I may limit responses for time management purposes, and we remind you in the audience that this is a respectful, courteous, and professional environment. Our goal tonight is to connect candidates and voters so that our electorate may vote informed. So again, our candidate running for the State House is Democrat Bill O'Lear. Candidates Nick Cupper and Michael Carbone were invited to appear but declined to participate. So, Mr. O'Lear, will you please start your opening remarks? Oh, I think you're muted.
Hi, my name is Bill O'Lear. I live in Surprise with my wife, Lynn, and our cat, Oliver. I was born and raised with a working class family in Connecticut, where I learned that honesty, hard work, and respect of others were critical and cornerstones of my upbringing. These values have guided me over the years, whether I was working with Mobil Oil for 23 years, raising a child with special needs, or running a small business in Surprise. I've always believed also in the power of community and the importance of understanding that leadership must serve the people. I'm running for this office in LD25 for the House of Representatives because the current legislators have failed to serve the people of Arizona. They've allowed a $1.3 billion deficit, and that's one of the reasons why I'm running. They also failed to keep the promises that they made to the people of Arizona. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. I want to start off by asking you, is there a particular issue that's a priority for you, a particular bill that you want to start off with if and when you join the state legislature?
Well, I definitely want to make an impact on education. We're still number 49th in the nation with respect to per capita spending on public education. We need to improve our schools. Our kids are our future. We need to create a better future for them. And one of the ways to do that is to provide the education that they need to be competitive in this world. We still have a global world with global economy, and we need to prepare our kids for that. We have AI coming up in the next decades, and we need to make sure that they have all of the skill sets that they can function and get the jobs of the future. Right now, we're not spending enough money on education. In fact, money was taken out of the budget this year, and more money was given to ESAs. And so those types of things need to change so that we can give our kids the best education possible going forward. And we need to strengthen the curriculum as we go forward, too, to make them more competitive in the world as well. Thank you.
I think you just answered this question. I was going to ask you what your thoughts are on ESAs.
Well, I think ESAs had a purpose. And I think in the original intent, especially for kids with learning disabilities or special needs, I think they were great. But they were never meant to be expanded to the size of population. It's also almost become a welfare program for wealthier people to send their kids to private schools that were never in the public school system. This is draining money away from the public schools. And really, the best bang for our buck in public school is public schools, because we have the infrastructure in place already. We don't need to create other infrastructure. And the schools are actually the best place for kids to get a well-rounded education and to have the diversity of viewpoints that they have with the exchange of students throughout the day.
I'll do one more education question for you. Do you support increases for teacher pay in public schools?
Yes, I do. I do support teacher pay increases, but I also support hiring teachers. Not only do we need to retain teachers in the state, which we're running into a problem where many teachers are looking, if they can't do better, to change their careers or move out of state. We need to retain these teachers going forward. Again, they are our future to our economy going forward. So we need to have more teachers, but we also need, have the teachers paid adequately. But we also need more teachers so that we can reduce the class sizes and then provide the other tools that they need during the day to give the kids a world-class education.
All right, let's move along to abortion. That was a huge topic this year. Arizona, after Roe v. Wade was overturned, had a few different ideas about how to go about regulating abortions. What are your thoughts on the issue?
Well, again, I don't understand why my opponent supported the 1864 bill that was written by a rapist and a child abuser. And each time he voted for that bill to stay in place. Women need to have full control over their bodies. They need to have autonomy over their bodies so they can make the right healthcare decisions and get the healthcare that they need so they can choose when to have a family and what they need to do to make sure they stay safe and healthy. It's not just about saving a woman's life, okay? It's about how do you keep a woman healthy so that if she chooses to have a child in the future, she's able to do so and raise that child well, and have the health to do so. And it's also a thing for families. You know, everybody talks about being pro-family. How good is a family when the mother dies because of sepsis? You know, how disruptive is that to the family unit? We need to make sure that doesn't happen. And in some states, that's happening regularly now.
I'm just going to clarify quickly for anyone listening that the bill we're talking about was to repeal an old abortion ban that was near total and was actually overturned earlier in this most recent legislative session. Before we move on from this one, I'll just ask, do you support any limits on abortion at all?
I think, you know, if there's so much misinformation really talking about late-term abortions. They're so rare to begin with. It's not done for any other reason except either the child is no longer viable or the danger to the mother is so excruciating and possible death that they will abort the child. But in many cases, you know, these children, are, you know, depending on their development, aren't aborted. If the children are viable, they try to save these children. That's why you have these prenatal units where the child is, you know, taken from the womb early and they try to save the child. If the child is not viable, that's a different story. But I think this is, again, it's a decision between a doctor, a woman, and her family as to what needs to be done for the course of action. Because what's happening today is in many states, these women cannot get the type of help that they need to keep them safe. And they either have to go out of state or they run the risk of dying. And that really, it's a terrible thing for these families to face. And no woman should have to go through that. No woman should have to worry about whether she's going to survive or not.
All right. I'm going to try to hit on a lot of different issues tonight. So let's talk about water policy and climate. This is a big thing that voters are interested in, but maybe not something that gets a lot of screen time. What are your thoughts on Arizona's water situation and how we can protect our resources?
Well, climate change is for real, and it's been going on for a long time. And there's a lot of people that spread misinformation about it, and they deny it, and they keep, you know, trying to put monkey wrenches into legislation, et cetera. We have to, you know, again, I want to get into the legislature to solve problems, not symptoms, and not to sit around and do nothing. I want to make sure that we're addressing things to make life better for Arizonans. So we need to take an approach on water. It's a scarce resource that's getting more scarce. And quite honestly, not enough is being done in this state to preserve the water. There's not enough adequate money spent to the ADEQ with respect to environmental issues relating to water, number one. I think their budget is like $18 million. There's like over 180 projects, which means that there's not enough money. And in many cases, it takes too long before they can even address the environmental issues. But they need to do more to preserve the water that's already in the groundwater and aquifers and to make sure that we don't get it contaminated or polluted. And that, like I said, we only have 5 active management areas in the state. So we need to do a better job of that. We need to strengthen the Groundwater Act of 1980 as well. There are some people in the legislature that actually would like to lower the time frame in which they'd have to guarantee water, which is absolutely insane. Because we need at least a 100-year guaranteed supply. And I also found out recently that there's different projects that are built in the state with respect to rental units where they circumvent that 100-year requirement. So we need to make sure that the laws are strengthened in a way that they are not exempt from that, number one. And number two, that we're doing more to protect our water. Also, there are other areas in the state where they've taken water from in some of these other areas where they're not densely populated, basically buying time, but it's robbing Peter to pay Paul. And we need to monitor that better. And I think what it comes down to is we need to try to ascertain how much water, groundwater, really is there in the ground in these areas. Number two, we need to measure how much is being drawn off, and then how much, if it's being recharged, how much is going back in, to see whether or not we're getting to sustainable levels. And that's what they call sustainable yields. So I think we need to do a much better job. We need to get money appropriated where we can, again, make sure that we're adequately protecting our water. But we need to develop the conservation and also the ways in which companies who use large quantities of water can clean that water to a specification so we can recharge the aquifers with that as well.
Clean the water like brackish desal?
What's that?
Clean the water like purification?
Yeah, and I mean really clean. Like, I think there was some legislation that the legislature wanted to do is make it illegal for public money to be spent on any water that supposedly had feces in it.
Oh, yes. Yeah,
which is absurd because water today can be perfectly purified. And if you really need water, that may be a project that's less expensive than desalination. So why wouldn't you want to clean the water so you can actually have drinking water again from something that is totally polluted?
I like water policy, so.
I do too.
I was going to save this question for later, but you said something about finding solutions. Let's talk a little bit about bipartisanship at the legislature. So as we know, the Republicans have full control of the legislature. We have a Democratic governor. There's often some friction there. Would you be willing to work across the aisle? Do you consider bipartisanship to be a good thing, or is it a bad thing?
I think it's a great thing. I think I would definitely work across the aisle to get things done. This is an interview for employment today. So that's the way I look at it. And I think everybody watching today should think of this as a job interview, and also for the people, for the incumbent and the new challenger. And that you really should take a good hard look as to whether or not I'm going to come to work every day for you. And I am. I make this promise to you right now, and I will work tirelessly every day to get everything that you need to make your lives and your families more fruitful in the future.
Including working with Republicans.
Including working with Republicans. Absolutely.
Just to be clear, in this job interview, I can't hire you or not hire you, just for the record.
I understand.
All right. Let's talk about housing. I assume this is an issue in every single district. Housing prices in Arizona are quite high, and no one seems to agree on the solution to that. Do you have any policy positions on affordable housing?
Well, number one, I would try to work with all the stakeholders involved. And I would also like to look at zoning and how it's handled. I think it's primarily done through the state. What I'd like to do is take a look at how do we get that down to the cities and the communities and the counties, where they can come up with rational zoning laws that would, number one, speed up the process to get housing built, and also to maybe come up with different types of housing that would be acceptable than what we're seeing today. Like, I noticed that they're building these, like, I think, patio homes that they're renting out with respect to the rentals. Why couldn't we treat those as units where people could purchase those units? They would be much more affordable And it would be a great starter home for young people or for families that make a modest income. We need to get more housing for people making 60,000 or less, so service workers can actually live in communities that they want to, that are desirable. What's going on in Sedona, where workers go up there to work and they have to sleep in their cars or in a park, I mean, to me, is absolutely absurd, and something needs to be done about that. People need dignity and to be able to live in a safe environment. I mean, how many people would like their daughter sleeping in a car overnight, who's working, for probably $14, $15 an hour, instead of having a bed that's warm, safe, and those are the types of things that we need to do. But we also need to create the right amount of housing as well, not just for our citizens, but to make sure that we're taking care of the homeless and we're providing the resources necessary for the people that need the services and the security at the same time.
You did say something about zoning regulations. I want to go back to that just really quickly.
Sure.
Can you say more about that?
I just think that from my understanding, all of the zoning that pertains to the development and how developers is done from the state, what I'd like to do is try to give local communities more flexibility. So if they have, let's say, property sizes or types of structures that may vary from what is the norm, but their construction is sound, we should consider that. Making smaller size apartments for people, like I said, for people that can't afford the square footage or the property sizes today because land is very expensive. But we also need density. Density will save us in the long run with respect to resources, and it'll also make sure that we can meet the needs of our community.
Speaking of density, that makes me think of transportation.
Right.
Do you have any transportation priorities or particular projects you're interested in facilitating?
Well, I think we should start looking at, as we, one of the things that we have in this area is some of the worst here in the country. Right. I get every day on my Alexis or whatever she's called I get a notification that the air quality today was terrible.
Alexa?
Huh?
Alexa?
Alexa, yeah. But when I was a kid, I had asthma. I was growing up with asthma. My parents were thinking of moving out to Arizona for me to come here. But I actually, over time, outgrew asthma. I had my last asthma attack when I was 18 years old. But I was fortunate. But when I hear of all of the pollution that you have and all of the carbon, the oxygen levels that you have, it's really terrible, and we need to solve that. Somebody needs to start working on improving the air quality so our citizens don't get sick, and we need to start working that in the near future, not in the far off future. So one of the ways to do that is, how do we create ways to get mass transit that's effective and affordable in many communities that don't have it today. I live in Surprise. They're building this shopping center called Prasada. They want to build some high density units in Surprise as well, for both people that are over 55, but also some lower cost housing. But there's really no public transportation other than Uber to get people to that shopping center along Waddell Avenue, between Waddell and Cotton and Reams Road. So those are the types of things that I'd like to look at and look for ways to where we can get either light rail or even some, if the communities have changed and there is a demand for it, can we get some rail service between certain outlying towns into Phoenix, so people don't have to drive into Phoenix every day? Those are things I certainly would like to look at and see whether or not the projects make any sense.
I would say that public transportation is probably the biggest area of contention in the transportation field at the Capitol.
I'm sure
I have yeah, one more housing question for you about short-term rentals.
Sure.
You mentioned Sedona, which is an area that has a lot of those. Do you support regulating them more?
Yes, I do, and I think that they should be looked at as an income property and not as a residential unit. And I think that would help fix some of the city's budgets that they had the shortfall where they lost a lot of rental income. But also, I think it's the right way to treat the property. And I know that there was money taken away from both fire departments, colleges this year because of I guess a glitch in the law that was overturned, and then the legislature didn't pick it up. And I think in one firehouse alone, they lost $1.2 million. And I think some of the community colleges lost, what, $24 million or some ungodly amount of money. They can't afford to do that. And we, like I said, if a property's producing income, then it needs to be treated as such.
Okay. Let's talk a bit about the border. I'd say besides border security.
Okay. Sure.
Another big contentious topic. Do you see our southern border as a point of crisis, as a priority? What would you do to help?
I would say I say at times it is a crisis, and I think that it's certainly a priority. But you have to solve you have to look at the problem from the right perspective. You can't just say, okay, we've got a lot of people coming in, and I'm going to enact a law to stop it. Well, if you're the state, you don't really have the grounds to do so. And all you're doing is creating a lawsuit that's going to basically tie up the resources of the state of Arizona. The police departments aren't set up to do immigration work. Number one, you're distracting those police officers from policing and keeping us safe. And then the other thing is it's an unfunded mandate, which means you're not going to fund it anyways. So there's going to be no money to do it. So why don't we do this? Why don't we push our congressmen? Paul Gosar, I mean, every day talks about a lot of stuff, but he does nothing in the House. But yet everybody keeps sending him to the House all the time. He had an immigration bill that he could have signed that was great, that would have fixed 80% of the problems with immigration, but chose not to do that, right? Why? Because of politics. He put politics before the people of Arizona. That's what he did. So why don't we pressure him if he's going to be our representative, or replace him with another person, Kwesi Smith, that's going to actually do something about immigration and pass a legislation that's going to, number one, give us the number of border guards that we need, give us the attorneys for immigration down there so they can make quick decisions and quick turnarounds on people that don't qualify, so that we can change the regulations on what is a refugee in the country, because right now, with the way the broad term of a refugee does not allow the border guards to turn people away. So why don't we fix those things so that we can actually have an intelligent way to solve the immigration problem that, number one, secures our border, but also has a pathway to citizenship for people that we really need to immigrate to this country to keep this economy firing on all cylinders. I've spoken with the CEO from the Yuma Regional Health Center. Okay, they need nurses in this country. They need H-1B visas so they can get people to come, because they don't have the nurses that from American citizens work in this country, because a lot of nurses have decided to become traveling nurses or have chosen to get out of the profession since COVID. Why aren't we doing things like that to make it easier? I've spoken to the Farm Bureau. They want other visas so they can get people to come in and to work the fields in the farms, especially in Yuma, where they produce 92 or 95% of all the lettuce in the country in the winter. So why aren't we doing that? Why aren't we also pressuring the government to open up more ports of entry and coming up with better systems to have people go through those ports of entry quickly, so that people can come in and then go home at night, so they don't have to stay? So if we work as a bipartisan group, I'm sure we can solve this problem, but it needs to be solved from a federal standpoint, and it needs to be done really quickly. I mean, we really need to work on this instead of constantly. This has been pushed down the road since 2005. Every year it gets pushed down. It's too. We can't talk about it today. We can't. Well, today we got to talk about it. Tomorrow we got to do something about it.
Okay. I think I can squeeze in one last question for you. Let's talk about gun safety. Do you support red flag laws? And for anyone who doesn't know, that's basically not allowing people who have certain mental issues, for example, to have guns.
Yes, I do. I definitely do. I think we need to strengthen our gun laws. I believe in the Second Amendment. I believe people that are law-abiding citizens should be able to get their hands on a weapon for either hunting or recreation or even for home security. But we need comprehensive background checks so that people are really checked out, number one. Number two, we do need red flag laws. We need to prevent people that are domestic abusers from having guns. Those types of things are common sense. We need to make sure that people that do have guns, that are gun owners, that they're good citizens, that what they do is they want to become competent in handling that weapon, okay, so that their children don't get injured with that weapon, that weapon doesn't fall in the hands of somebody that shouldn't have that weapon. Those are the types of things that I'm really for.
All right. Thank you very much. And it looks like you have a little bit of time here for a closing statement.
Oh, thank you. Listen, it was a pleasure being here today. I just want to say I'm running for the State House in LD25. Please vote for me in November once you get your ballot. If you're voting by mail, don't wait, get it in. Please vote for me. If somebody does decide to vote for somebody else and one of the other candidates, you can still vote for me so that I can prove that we can work in a bipartisan manner. But I definitely want to go to the House in January. I want to work on behalf of you every day of the week. I want to make sure I'm protecting women's reproductive freedom and freedom in general, and also men's freedom as well. I want to make sure that we're building the right kind of housing so that everybody has a safe and affordable place to live. I want to make sure that we protect our water resources. But I also want to build an economy going forward, because if we do the things right, if we educate our kids and they become this resource, they can help build this economy so that everybody prospers and everybody benefits. So I just wanted to say thank you for having this time today, but please vote for me. A vote for me is a vote for you. So please do that. And again, thank you for your time.
Thank you. And that's a great reminder that for the House races, you're supposed to pick 2 candidates. You can do that.
Can I say one other thing?
Of course.
Please vote the ballot, the total ballot. There are so many things on this ballot this year that are so critical. We have the Corporation Commission. The rates for APS have gone up tremendously. I just spoke to a neighbor this morning. His bill in July was over $900. Okay, if you want that stuff to stop, then elect the right people and make sure you're asking the right questions of your candidates. But please vote Democrat for the Corporation Commission. They will protect your rights and make sure that you do not get bills that are astronomical. Thank you.
All right. This concludes our discussion. To our candidate, we thank you so much for participating. And to the voters, we thank all of you who took the time to watch and inform yourselves before the November 5th general election. We encourage you to visit azcleanelections.gov for official, accurate voting information.